Oh, such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 40% off select styles, plus a free professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Good afternoon, guys. Happy Monday. Welcome to the podcast. I've got a fantastic guest for the show today, Sheila Butler, coming out of Orlando. And she is going to talk to us all about marketing. And she is a founder and chief marketing officer, and she knows a lot about branding, loyalty, and marketing strategy for clients. And she's launching her YouTube channel, which will go live pretty shortly. And I'm really happy to have her on to discuss her story and add value to the audience. So Sheila, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much, Christopher. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, briefly introduce yourself, and I'm excited to dive into the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Sheila Butler. I live in a suburb of Orlando that's literally a mile off of Walt Disney World property. And I've been here for the past 3 years. So I started my career at Disney ages ago, and then I left Disney and I went to a tech startup where I developed branding messaging for venture capital pitches by the entrepreneurs. I then went to Bank One, which became JP Morgan Chase, and I spent 17 years in partnership marketing as well as new customer acquisitions and innovation. And from there, I went to Choice Hotels to lead their global loyalty program, all their partnerships, and then ultimately global marketing for them. And that was during the pandemic when I realized, wow, I really miss Orlando, and I honestly miss the weather. So I moved down here and I started as chief marketing officer for a regional bank that was investing in fintechs. And I busted out and started my own company in May of 2023. And it's just been fantastic. It's like entrepreneurship has been better than I could have ever dreamt it would be.
Yeah, what a fantastic intro. And so we'll dive into the questions. And first thing we're wondering about is brand transformational journeys, and just talk about what you learned from tech entrepreneurship startup as well as Disney World. I know that area, I can't remember the name, Oyster something, but talk about branding from Disney and tech that you learned that you're going to carry into your business.
So I was working in marketing at Disney after entertainment, and I was there just at the right time in the mid to late 90s, in which they were determining how to market each of the Disney parks in a very distinct way that would better communicate to potential guests why they should stay at Disney and go to all 4 of the theme parks. And so that was really the start of me understanding brand management around core identity, brand promise, point of difference, all these different things. And so when I left Disney and I went to the tech startup, I realized that all of the things that I had learned at Disney were so applicable to fintechs and entrepreneurs, because at the end of the day, they have a great idea, a great product, a great service, but they don't know how to explain it in a succinct sort of way that would encourage venture capitalists to invest in these entrepreneurs. And so that was really the first testing ground for me to apply what I was learning in a very creative way for entrepreneurs. And what's interesting is right after I left that company, they actually unfortunately went under, and I was at Bank One, a friend of mine came to me and he said, I bought this entertainment company. It's a production company. And I just need help with my website. And I thought, oh, I got that. That's cool. Okay, great. I go, tell me more about your company. He goes, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, he goes, I don't know how to explain what we do. And it dawned on me that he needed branding work. He needed to create his competitive landscape. Like, what space did he want to occupy in the market relative to other entertainment production studios in the Orlando area? And then he needed to articulate what are the core equities? What does he do day in and day out? And how does it benefit potential clients? And then what are his core identities? What's the 4 things that he wants to be known for that become your brand pillars? What's the personality of the brand, right? How do you bring the personality to life in tone and voice and typography and colors and logo. And then he also really didn't know what he was promising customers that were willing to hire him for production work. So what's your brand promise? Why should someone care? What's the benefit to them if they take advantage of that brand promise? And what's true point of difference relative to everyone else in the marketplace that does something very similar? And so then figuring out how do you take those things, which I call the brand mountain. It's my process. I call it Butler Branding Boot Camp. And you start with the very foundational, rational elements about your brand. And then the higher up you go in that mountain, especially when you get to the core identity, that's where you're really starting to get into the intangible emotional connection that your brand is making with your customers. And then you build out the marketing messaging around your strategic statement of value. What's the positioning statement? What's the 10-second elevator pitch? And then what are the 4 marketing narrative themes in a couple sentences that bring the core identity or those brand pillars to life? And what's been amazing, Christopher, is that I did not expect that when I did this for my friend 20 years ago, that it would be applicable when a friend was starting a nonprofit. And then when other people started to come to me for their own personal branding. The process works the same for B2B, B2C, B2B2C, and personal branding. And when you then layer in who are my target audiences, because you may have 2 or 3, and then what are those target personas? If I really imagine them as an individual, really identifying them, and I could see them in my mind, who would they be? Then you take all the marketing messaging and you tailor that for each of the individual audiences. So you can modify what you're saying to be exceptionally relevant to your customer base.
Yeah, and so what the other thing is that I want to touch upon is talking about is Disney is one of those it's been around when I was born in the 70s, and they're still around, and they've got all these fantastic loyalty. What have you found to be the most effective strategies for building and maintaining strong customer loyalty programs? And then I'm going to ask you about your differences between the innovative tech sectors and these legacy brand companies.
Yep. So when it comes to loyalty, honestly, I view it very similarly to branding, which is the secret is the emotional connection that you're making with your customer. And because you want brand to transcend price and location specifically. So I'll give you an example. When I ran global loyalty at Choice Hotels, you want a clean bed, you want a bathroom, you want something that's easy to get to, that has parking, right? Hotels pretty much, most of them do that, at least the really good ones. But what makes the difference in having a potential guest choose your brand versus a Marriott, a Hilton, an IHG? And that's where you start to get people engaged in the loyalty program. When you have them engaged in the loyalty program, you can identify your customer, their contact information, so you can reach out to them again. You can lower the cost of acquisition or the cost for booking that room night, because rather than booking through an Expedia, an Orbitz, or something, they book directly on your website or your mobile app. And you can start to build up this loyalty, this emotional connection through the perceived value of points, through free nights, through room upgrades, through room amenities, or an offer to use at the restaurant. All these different things start to layer into where you build this relationship, this one-on-one relationship with your customer. And that can be real tangible dollars to brands.
Yeah, I really love how you describe that, and just the customer loyalty. And you're talking about this, the best companies it's an emotional feel. It's how you feel about a brand. Like when we talk about Apple or Coke or Home Depot, all these brands have different associations. And so next question I have for you is, what was it like because you worked at a tech startup raising venture capital, and then the marketing and branding strategy is completely different than somebody like a JP Morgan or a Disney. So talk about those differences.
I tell you what, I was not prepared for the difference in coming from a very large entertainment company. We're talking like hundreds of thousands of people with multiple lines of business between TV and film and theme parks and cruise and all this, right? So I was so used to this giant pyramid of a company, and I'm towards the very bottom of it because there's so many employees. In fact, Disney World is, I believe to this day, the largest single site employer in the United States, with something like upwards of 60,000 cast members just in the Orlando area. And then I find myself at a tech startup that's been around for a few years, but they're still in like startup mode. And I'm maybe the 30th employee that they've hired. And ultimately, when they went under, there were probably 63 of us. And so I was used to being in this environment to where there are processes and procedures and training and a brand equity very much built up already, right? And then going to this company that has very few processes, that you're just scraping and doing everything that you need to do, because if you don't do it, no one will. And that was a very different experience. I also realized that I had a ton to learn about brand management, because even though I learned it at Disney, doing it yourself as the only expert in the entire company, I really had to, that's why I created the process. That's how I honed it with these entrepreneurs. And then my friend asking me to help him with his website. I really had to make it up as I was going along, because I didn't have the infrastructure of working in a marketing team of over 100 people like at Disney. And JP Morgan was very much the same way. I think that when I worked in the new customer and acquisition, marketing growth and innovation team, which is the world's longest department title ever, but we also called it a creative center of excellence. There were 100 of us. And I was one of two people working on investment decisioning to say, this is what I think the projected lifetime value is for a new card member over the span of 3 years. And working with the analysts to say, okay, if that's the projected lifetime value, then what are we willing to, on a quarterly basis, invest to get that one single card member? And so how much are we willing to invest in the product, the channel, and the tactic? How much are we willing to spend in an acquisition offer, be it either points or cash back, to acquire this person, recognizing that maybe I spend $500 to acquire them, but they're going to spend $4,000 over the next 3 years. And so honing that in a team of 100 people is, again, very different than going to a regional bank that's investing in fintechs in Orlando. And I'm one of two people working on marketing. So it's just been a really interesting and fun ride. And I've learned so much about marketing and myself with each role.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Yeah, I love that. And it's really interesting to see just the startup versus the more established corporation. The next question I have for you is, because, branding, and a lot of people listening to the podcast, they're looking to reinvent their careers, career transitions, do other things, be influencers. So for those people looking for that, what advice can you offer on personal branding to transition successfully?
Honestly, it's the same process. It's thinking about what's your competitive framework, right? What space do you want to occupy? Do you want to transition from one career to another? Do you want to go from a full-time gig to being a consultant, right? Whatever that transition is, what space do you want to play in? And then thinking about, what do I have to offer? What do I do really day in and day out? What are my superpowers? And then what's the type of work that I'm looking to attract? And then how do I sell what my skills are based upon the type of work, right? So when I started Butler Marketing Group, I stepped back and I thought, what do I really want to do? Like, if someone could pay me money and I could pick and choose the types of clients and the types of projects that I want to work on, I realized it's around branding, either new products and companies or transforming businesses because they're at this inflection point. Maybe they've acquired another company, they're going through a merger, right? So that's all like branding and brand transformation work. But I also really love loyalty programs. I'm fascinated by how loyalty programs can motivate someone to do the things that company wants them to do. And again, it's not competing on price. There would be cheaper hotel rooms to select than maybe the choice hotel that you decided to stay at that night, but you're staying because you see value in the points and you see a future in visiting that brand again to redeem those points. I'm fascinated by marketing strategy and thinking about customer journey mapping, like what's the right message, the right time, and the right channel, the right order, and building out strategic roadmaps so that you've got a plan for your owned, earned, and paid marketing channels over the span of 6 months, 12 months. Thinking about content strategy and thought leadership and how does that show up for someone. And I love actually fractional chief marketing officer work. So parachuting in, becoming that chief marketing officer for limited number of hours a month or limited number of days a week a month, and then doing that until the company gets to where they need to be. Either they're ready to hire someone full time, or you've done your job, you've set the North Star, you've upskilled the team, you've taught them strategy, and now they can go and grow and they don't need you anymore. I love that. And so I think that thinking about your personal brand and what are the types of things you want to do, what do you do exceptionally well, and being super clear on what your brand promise is, what people get from buying into that promise and your point of difference. And I'll share as an example. So my brand promise is that I create marketing that leaves a legacy for small, medium, and large companies at a fraction of the cost. And that encompasses branding and loyalty and fractional work and marketing strategy. And then you would say, what's the end benefit? What does someone get if they buy that promise? They're going to grow, evolve, and transform either themselves personally or their business. And my point of difference, me versus everyone else, is that I come from a really different lens. I have a unique lens. It's why my logo, which is behind me, is a kaleidoscope, because you turn the kaleidoscope and you see something very different than what someone else will see when they pick that up. And that lens, that different point of view, comes from working in tech startup and with fintechs and big corporate America and financial services and hospitality and banking. And so I just feel like I see things from a very different angle than most people do. And that served me really well.
Yeah, I really love that answer. And another question I have for you is, how do you see technology, with evolving technology, how do you see it impacting the way you view branding, and specifically talking about how companies, with your experience, how they viewed, for example, Google search, and then there was social media, their smartphones. And then now the talk these days is all about AI. How do you view these technologies in terms of a branding, marketing perspective?
I tell you what, I don't know how I could have started and built my business if AI hadn't existed. It is an accelerant for me in a way that it can take care of mundane tasks that I either don't have the energy for or I don't care to spend my time like that. It can be a thought starter for me. I can feed something into it that I've worked on and said, help me make this better. I'm able to create the brand personality and bots so that I write in the style and tone and voice of my brand. And I can differentiate that from, this is my website. It's very pixie dust, sort of Disney-esque sort of language. But when I blog or when I'm writing, then it's very much matter of fact, like I'm talking with a neighbor over a fence in a very conversational sort of way. And so I'm able to build all these things, and I can get so much more work done. It doesn't replace creativity. It doesn't replace the authenticity. You're not going to get that. At best, it's going to give you an average answer when you start. And then as you teach it, especially when you have these custom bots, the productivity increases tenfold, 20-fold. And so that's been a tremendous gift for me to get the work done for myself to establish my business. And I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in 1 month or 2 months from now.
And to add on to that, I love asking this because I want to ask your opinion is for someone looking to market and brand themselves, promote their business, is it better to go on like a Joe Rogan, Dave Ramsey, Lex Friedman podcast versus go on TV and radio? Which would be better in your opinion?
You know what? Honestly, there's no better in my mind. It's actually a matter of who is your target audience? Where are they? And being in the places where they are, I think that in which, again, I've spent a lot of my career in, especially at Chase and then at Choice Hotels, partnership marketing is all around finding brand collaboration, reaching new audiences by tapping into their audience and finding mutually beneficial elements of why you would partner together. So depending upon where your audience is, if they're TV and radio, then yes, go there, right? Have ads on Spotify, have things on local TV if you're very much a local business. If you're something to where you're trying to reach the masses and you want to tap into a very large following, then do something like a Ramsey, a Rogan, right? It all goes back to, and you cannot replace strategy. Just like dive in and think that I'm just going to do this and it should work out. No, you have to be very thoughtful about your brand strategy, your marketing strategy, your marketing objectives and your communication objectives, and build out the strategy from that. Here's my business objective and my goals. Here's my marketing objective and my communication objectives. And then the strategies that you're going to use and tactics to execute on those objectives.
Yeah, the reason why I asked is because I read this article recently where basically the masses view mainstream media as adversarial and they don't really trust it, and they feel like, so a lot of people are turning to like YouTube and podcasts. So that's why I wanted to get your particular slant. I really enjoyed this conversation. We have around 3 minutes left, and you talked about partnership marketing. And what is that? Describe that is, and how can people find you and reach out to you and work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So partnership marketing, it's really finding complementary brands where you can tap into your audience and partner with another company for their benefit as well to expand their audience, right? There's so many different creative ways that I see partner. Pop-Tarts Bowl starting in 2023. Incredible. I hadn't thought about Pop-Tarts in decades. And then suddenly they're there and omnipresent. And they did a great job of partnering with college football in order to reinvigorate the brand. So you see these partnerships all the time. It's just finding what's the right strategy for your brand and the right partners that you can work with. So I would love to share more. In fact, if your audience has an interest in a free 20-minute consultation, they can reach out to me at Sheila@butlermg.com for Butler Marketing Group. And maybe by the time February rolls around, I'll probably have my YouTube show called Marketing Over Bourbon, where I'll be talking more about these things in studio in Orlando with some great innovators and entrepreneurs and former Disney executives, and who knows who else will pop up.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation, and to your continued success, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. It's so great meeting you, and best of luck to you.